I got
Yeah, hello?
Kylo and Cap going in.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's great that you mentioned that you're a scientific atheist because I have an argument, a scientific argument for God.
Okay.
Well, you might be familiar with it. It's just the Bayesian formulation of fine-tuning.
Okay.
It's obviously a scientific argument because it hinges on claims that are they have their foundations in the field of physics, which is obviously a scientific domain. Are you familiar with the argument?
I am.
Probably not. It's a Bayesian formulation of fine tuning.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen this approach before. I don't know if anyone's ever actually given me the math.
Yeah, well, we don't really need to give like a strict like mathematical understanding if we just use like the likelihood principle. So obviously the likelihood principle just wants to say that if you make some observation and you have two contrastive hypotheses, if the observation is more expected under H1 as opposed to H2, and those are obviously just the two contrastive hypotheses, then it's evidence for H1, right? That's just the trivial understanding of the Bayesian likelihood principle, right? The evidence is going to confirm one hypothesis over the other. So we don't really need to get into the math. All we need to talk about is whether or not the observation is more expected under H1 as opposed to H2. And I think that's a very trivial thing to motivate. The two hypotheses in question here are going to be theism and naturalism. Given that you're a scientific atheist, I'm going to kind of make the precept that you're a naturalist, are you, or no?
I tend to be. I don't see reason to think abstract objects are real or supernatural plane of existence is real.
Okay, cool. So then, given that you're a naturalist, we have evidence that's more expected under theism than naturalism. And I can explain the evidence in question and maybe get to how it's more expected. So the evidence in question is what's called the fine-tuning claim. Now, before we begin, I want to make it very clear what this claim is not saying. It's not saying that there's some mind that like designed the values or that there's some intention. All the fine-tuning claim wants to say is just that there's a large amount of ways the universe could have been, epistemically speaking. And within that large amount of ways, there's a narrow range that permits life, and our universe falls in the narrow range. And this fine-tuning claim is more expected under theism than naturalism if we look at facts internal to the theory. Right, and then it's going to be evidence given the principle that we talked about earlier, which is the Bayesian likelihood principle. So I'm just curious on your thoughts on that argument.
It's an interesting argument. It has a lot of responses. So I think you overprivilege with the. I think there is an overprivileging without a demonstration of likelihood for a large part of this argument.
I can demonstrate the likelihood. That's easy.
Okay, go ahead.
I didn't demonstrate the likelihood. I did make the claim that it's more likely insofar as it's more expected. The demonstration of the likelihood. Yeah, it just seems trivial because if we look at the things internal to naturalism, all we have is just that the universe is a series of natural processes, right? There's nothing that's supernatural. Whereas, like, it seems like there's nothing internal to the theory of naturalism that expects fine-tuning. Whereas if we look at what's internal to theism, which is just that there's a mind that created the universe, and he's axiologically motivated, which just means he wants to bring about value. It seems like the fact that he wants to bring about value is internal to the theory. Is going to draw out the expectation of fine-tuning because minds tend to value rational life. And this is a mind, right, that's axiologically motivated. So it seems like the likelihood claim is just trivial.
What were the other possibilities?
The other possibilities, are you asking about other possibilities that can explain the data or other possibilities for the fine-tuning claim?
We have life-permitting universe.
Mm-hmm.
We have not life-permitting universe.
Mm-hmm.
Or the difference between those two things, was it 50-50?
No.
Okay, how did you determine the odds and what are they?
Yeah, so the probability, it seems like the probability claim is a claim given background stipulations. We're specifically talking about the amount of possibilities. So all that's being said here is that there's an extremely small amount of epistemic possibilities that are able to permit life relative to the whole. And we can determine this very easily.
That's the part that's not demonstrated. So my contention is, when you talk about changing constants, like force, or the weak and strong nuclear force. It's probably one you are concerned with, right?
No, I'm specifically concerned with the cosmological constant and the gravitational constant.
Yeah, strong and weak nuclear force, and like.
Those are distinct.
Yeah, but they're also necessary for a life-permitting universe. If they were changed, then the universe would like collapse on itself or whatever, right? We wouldn't be able to
I
fly.
wouldn't be that quick to make that claim, but the data in question isn't those. We're specifically just using the gravitational and cosmological
Sure,
constant.
but we're referring to laws of physics and constants in that field. That if you imagine a thought experiment where you change them to be a different value than what they are, then you can do math with that assumption, showing that the universe would collapse in on itself.
Yeah, and there's easy justification for this.
What I take issue with is saying in my thought experiment in my head, if I change the gravitational force to be +1 higher, I'm going to run equal odds on every possible. So like you have the gravitational force, what it is. I'm going to change it to be this. I'm going to change it to be this. I'm going to change it to be this. And then you run odds, typically in the calculations that I've seen, you run odds that make all of these possibilities equal likelihood.
Yeah,
How in the absolute world did you determine that?
Yeah, that's just indifference. But it seems like that's a different type of objection than just objecting to the data, right? We can justify the fine-tuning claim very easily using hypothetical deductive reasoning. Frank Hoyle in the 1960s,
Hold on.
I'm pretty sure.
Wait.
I wasn't finished, but
Okay, so here, I'm going to make a claim that I don't necessarily believe, but I want you to prove it wrong. The odds of a life-permitting universe are 100%, because the constants cannot change. Go ahead and debunk that.
That's just trivially false, depending on the modality, when you say cannot there. If you're talking in terms of the typological modality, that's false.
Like metaphysically
If you're talking,
prove that they could have been any other way.
Oh, that's pretty easy. So we want to look at hypothetical deductive reasoning for the contrastive account of that claim, right? The contrastive account of that claim, it seems like we have these type of prima facie understandings of the type of epistemic possibilities in the domain of physics, right? So there's no prima facie known physical principle that would determine if it were the case that these type of constants would have to be a certain way. One, and then two, we have the hypothetical deductive reasoning where we kind of look at some theory and we seek out what would be entailed from that theory, and then given that we make that observation, it would be confirmed, right? So Hoyle in the 1960s did this exact thing where he made some type of claim about, I think it was either a cosmological constant or something to do with relativity, where he looked at what would be entailed if the fine-tuning claim were true, and he searched out for that exact thing, and then given that he observed it, that given hypothetical deductive reasoning, it's going to be confirmation of the fine-tuning claim. Those are two reasons as to why the claim of this type of metaphysical necessitarianism fails.
I don't know if I fully understood that argument, but I don't think it's demonstrated that they could have been any other way. They're called
No, it did, because the
reason.
fine-tuning claim embeds the idea that the constants could have been another way, right? And when you use hypothetical deductive reasoning, what you're doing is you're looking at the fine-tuning claim. You're thinking about the hypothetical entailments of that claim, and then you search for those entailments. And then when you find those entailments, that's going to confirm fine-tuning. And that's exactly what Hoyle did. And then also, the fact that there's no known prima facie physical principle is also going to be evidence in favor of the fact that this type of metaphysical necessitarianism falls. Right, so it trivially just is going to give us reason to reject.
With this argument?
Well, it's trivially going to give us reasons to reject necessitarianism, but another thing is just that you would be committed to saying
other problems with the argument.
Well, I wasn't finished on the necessitarianism, but I want to make sure we're past this before we move on. So another problem with the necessitarianism point is that you would be committed to saying that there's a metaphysical contradiction if it were the case that I didn't exist, right? Because the universe presumably couldn't be another way if metaphysical necessitarianism were true, right? But it just seems prima facie that there is no metaphysical contradiction, right? Unless you can give me one. I think that seeming is also going to give us the feasible reason.
I don't have to point out a contradiction necessarily.
Well, the seeming that there is none is going to justify it.
we're talking about really weird topics, and I don't know if we can have a really firm understanding of them. So all I'm pointing out,
I have an understanding of the claims, and I think I've been meeting my burden on disproving
I don't think any
several
human
of the objections on the
understands.
table.
I don't think any human fully understands the 26 fundamental constants of the universe and how they function or work. And I think it's not demonstrated, and it's a big assumption to think that they could.
Well, I just gave you about 2 arguments in favor of the negation of what you just said. So you would be making a question against the argument.
Them. That's fine. Now, there are more problems with this argument.
Okay, but do you understand that you just begged the question against the argument when you just said that? You're just repeating the denial of the claim in spite of the fact that I gave you justification, right? Which would just be begging the question against the account of my justification.
That's fine. I'll look into what you objected with. Now, the next problem is that you have overprivileged this present reality.
No.
You've assigned undue weight to the fact that you like this reality. What if
fine-tuning doesn't talk about this reality.
Cap.
I don't know why you're monopolizing.
Because you're not letting me talk, even though I let you monologue. I like the KG clan. I like your boss Kylo. So please give me some respect. Okay.
Yeah, this is a common response. I already know where this is going to go. You're talking about the observation selection effect, and it seems like.
Cap, let me explain it in normal words, okay? Look, you're saying, wow, what are the odds that the universe is the way that it is? That's crazy.
Yeah, that's the observation selection.
If it was in a different way, we might be like little dots on a piece of paper universe, and we're alive, and we would be saying, oh my God, what if the 3 fundamental constants of this universe were different? We would never have ink paper dot life on this plane of it. This is crazy. What are the chances? Like, we don't know.
Yeah, so
we could all be like magma life in a molten star in some kind of different formulation. We could all be astral projection life. We could all be not life at all. Who cares? I mean, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, we can talk about that. So the problem you're bringing up is called the observation selection effect, where the idea, you want to say something like, we shouldn't be surprised to find ourselves in this type of universe because a life-permitting universe, because we can only ever be in one, right? And then there's a second part of the objection that you brought up, which is this kind of idea of, well, the universe could have been any other way where life is a type of thing which obtains. The problem with the first part of that claim is that saying that doesn't actually do any evidentiary work, right? Like, it doesn't cash out or object to the idea that this data is more expected under theism, right? Which was the original claim. So the observation selection effect doesn't seem to serve as a proper objection to the formulation that I'm giving. And then the response to the second part is that the type of life in question here is very specifically spatially extended bodies, right? So the point about astral projection doesn't seem to work. I'm willing to grant, presumably, that...
Capra Hurst a really interesting argument, but he doesn't seem to be able to think in the moment.
Well, I'm responding to the objection directly.
Not really.
I even recapitulated it.
If I may,
Right, so you're not actually capable of understanding that. I just recapitulated your objection.
Okay,
the way
maybe
it's
I'm an
literally
idiot.
defined in
Maybe
literature.
Vision's got something for you. Vision, what's going on?
No, you said something very interesting. You said that like it was more expected under theism, and I think that like the fine-tuning argument. I think that the fine-tuning argument is a good argument against atheism, of course, but it could also be used against theism, because if your God truly is all powerful, why is everything balanced on a knife edge? You know?
Yeah, there's several
That's an
responses to
interesting point. I
that.
haven't heard that one before.
Yeah, there's several responses to that. The first one is just that the fine-tuning claim in general is itself a metaphysical claim about the type of claims that could govern our reality, or the type of epistemic possibilities that could govern our reality, given that we see life, right? So we're making a claim that's kind of something which is going to be baked into the foundations of reality. So you saying something like, well, why is everything balanced on a knife edge? That just seems true in virtue of the fine-tuning claim itself.
Yeah, I would agree, but then again, if theism is true,
It's a metaphysical
and
claim.
God truly exists, and God is all powerful, again, why is everything balanced on a knife edge, right?
Yeah,
It
because
is
I
an
don't grant
argument
that God...
against atheism and also against theism.
No, it isn't, because I don't grant that God can do metaphysical impossibilities, right? And the idea that everything wouldn't be balanced on a knife edge seems like it's going to be the type of thing which is metaphysically impossible, right? So that's the reason why everything would be bounced on a knife edge. God presumably wouldn't have any control over that type of thing.
Now, the way you formulated the argument is pretty good. This argument has become more mature with time because of all the objections, because you specifically stipulate life-permitting universe as the fine-tuning example. Now, less mature Christians or religious people approach and say that the universe is fine-tuned as evidenced by, like, the tides go in, the tides go out, and it all works in tandem. You wouldn't make such a silly claim as that, would you?
No.
Okay.
I'm only talking about the evidence as I provided it.
Yeah, I know. Right. You have a more mature formulation of this argument than the average Christian. But if you wanted to defeat the average Christian at this argument, they're gonna note things like, well, it's crazy that there are trees and things like that, and this world has everything we need on it to survive. It's finely tuned for us, and there's no evidence on Earth that the world is finely tuned for our benefit. I mean, we have cancer, the very thing that provides life to us, also irradiates our skin and kills us. We have to wear clothing. We can't live on most of the Earth's surface. Even the places we can live, we can only really live there comfortably like 30% of the time. The other 70% of the time, it's either too hot, too cold, or there's a natural disaster going on. And 99% of the observable universe is completely hostile to life. So there's no natural facts that would lend themselves toward a fine-tuning argument. But Capp's formulation of the argument is a little bit more mature, where he says the fundamental constants of the universe are such that they permit life. So he's not referencing these kind of natural facts necessarily.
If you don't mind me speaking really quick, host, one of the other things that also has to be contended with on the part of the people that abide by fine-tuning is that we have actually measured the time variability of the strength of the physical constants down to a part in less than 1 billion, right? So
you don't have to do that, though. I don't grant that. That's not part of the claim, right? Because as long as we have an idea, like a general epistemic idea of the of kind of the partition, right? Like, we know there's like this type of narrow range, and we know there's a wide range. We don't need to appeal to some type of fully defined subset. As long as we have a general epistemic idea of the idea that the range is narrow. Right, so obviously when we get down to it, the numbers break down at a very specific point where we're not going to be able to fully observe the type of things that we're talking about. We just don't have the technology for it. But as long as we have a proper epistemic idea of the domain, and like, you can imagine like looking at a pie, like at first glance, you know that there's only like one slice that's small, even though you don't know the exact size of the pie. You can kind of imagine it like that, right? So we don't need to have this type of well-defined physics subset or have knowledge of kind of where the numbers break down past that point, as long as we have that type of idea.
Okay. Hamilton and Nana, you just got here.
Hey. Yeah, I'm an atheist as well. I don't believe in the Bible or any God or anything. I'm a scientist, so.
Is that you, Hamilton, speaking?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I think that the universe has 3 trillion, multiple trillions of galaxies, and we don't really know yet what's going on.
Okay. Nana, what's on your mind?
Nana, hello?
I'm going to mute them, so maybe it's not clear that they know they're up here. So, okay. I think we kind of hashed out the agreements, disagreements. I think you're defending the argument decently. At the end of the day, what do you think your conclusion gets you? Like a mind that planned these constants? Oh, Cap left. Oh, crap.